We're going to talk about several technologies, small topics that are included in the ENCORE exam. First of all, IP-SLA. With IP-SLA, you will have a way to notice changes within your network in real time so you can take action upon discovery of these changes. You can use this feature for monitoring purposes, to assess health in your network, to check for availability, or to as a troubleshooting tool. It is usually used in conjunction with tracking objects. You must give if of your SLAs a number, then you will have to configure an operation. For instance, if you want to test for reachability, you can use the operation ICMP echo, and then you have to configure your frequency, your timeout, and your threshold, and then you will have to start your SLA using the command IP-SLA schedule. This is very useful because, for instance, if you want to know in real time if a remote device is alive or not, you can use the reachability feature, and in that case you can use the ICMP echo in order to know if, for instance, your default gateway is still alive. You can also test for web server availability, delay, jitter, packet loss, and so on. Network type protocol is a protocol that is a standard that will help your devices synchronize their time. You will need this if you're using certificates or you want to correlate events for troubleshooting or for security reasons. Remember that when you're reviewing your logs, these logs will have a timestamp, and if that timestamp is not correct, they are not really usable. This network time protocol is hierarchical. This means that at the root lies a server that has an atomic clock. Then the client that is synchronizing with that server is known as having an stratum number 1. That client can become a server to another client. That other client will have an stratum of number 2, and so on. You can configure a server using the command NTP master with an stratum number. A client can have several servers that can be configured with the command NTP server. If many servers are configured, the one having lower stratum is used. Remember that lower stratum is better because that stratum is closer to the root. And you can have also peers. You can configure peers. In this case, the peers will blend their time together. And this happens if you have two clients that have different root servers. Use the command show NTP status and show NTP associations in order to troubleshoot it. With Netflow, you have a feature that can gather statistics for you, and you can either watch these statistics within the same device using the command show IP cache flow or show IP cache flow or show IP flow top talkers. Or you can send this information to a remote device that is Netflow aware, where you can create graphics. It is made of two components, the Netflow data capture and Netflow data export. It will consume your memory resources using a cache. This cache size depends on the device. It can support ingress or egress gathering of statistics. It will capture traffic based on flows. What is a flow? A flow is an unidirectional traffic stream made of a source IP, destination IP, source port, destination port, IP protocol, TOS, or input interface. So if you have traffic that goes from one source to one destination, and you have two packets that are aimed to different destination ports, that make that packet belong to a different flow. This Netflow feature offers you another neat feature that is known as top talkers. With top talkers, you will get to know what are the flows that are using the more bytes per second or packets per second resources from your device. If you want to customize the exact fields For you want Netflow to gather statistics from, you will not be able to do it with Netflow, but you can do it with Flexible Netflow, which is an extension of Netflow. It will let you customize data to be captured. It will have a modular configuration where you configure a recorder and multiple exporters, and the recorders are made of collects and match. The collects will select key fields, like fields that are contained within the IP header or TCP header, and the match will select non-key fields, like TCP flags or the count of bytes or count of packets. CoPP. CoPP stands for Control Plane Policy. This feature will let you protect your control plane or CPU. You will apply a quality of service policy to the control plane in order to limit the traffic that reaches your devices, specifically the traffic that is aimed to your control plane, like for instance pings to your device, or hellos that belong to a routing protocol that should be managed by your device. This policy will have to include quality of service classes that must match different types of traffic. You must use tools before configuring these in order for you to know what rates you will be assigning to each type of traffic. When using the statement violate action, it is recommended that if you're configuring CoPP for the first time, use the forwarding parameter, and then you will have to see how much non-conformant traffic you are forwarding, and decide if you want to drop it in a second approach to configure CoPP. Now this is a huge topic, the terminal lines and security. Remember that your device have several terminal lines, like the console, the auxiliary port that was used for modems. It should be disabled because it is not used anymore, and your virtual terminals that are used to connect to your device remotely using Secure Shell or Telnet. There are several commands that are advised to be used to secure your terminal lines. Exec timeout will kill idle sessions when they reach a certain amount of time. The absolute timeout will kill your sessions always when they reach a certain amount of time. And the logout warning command will send your users a warning when their sessions is about to get killed. It is recommended that for your console you use the command transport input known, so no one can telnet into your console. The no exec command for your auxiliary port line, in order to disable the auxiliary terminal line, and use access control list to control who can connect to your virtual terminals. Use the command show line in order to troubleshoot your virtual terminals, and in order to authenticate who can connect to your virtual terminals, you have several methods. You can use a password, which is the worst method. It is not recommended. You can use local authentication, where your user will be asked for a username and a password, which is better than use just a password. Or you can use AAA, which is the recommended way to do it. In order to configure password access, use the command login and password. In order to configure local authentication, use the command login local. And in order to configure AAA, you have to enter AAA configurations within your device. And some terminal lines will need the command login authentication. In order to configure AAA in your device, enter the command AAA new model, then add your servers. You can add TACACS plus servers or radius servers. It is recommended that you use TACACS plus servers. You can optionally create a group of TACACS servers. In order to enable authentication, use the command AAA authentication. In order to enable authorization, use the command AAA authorization. And in order to enable accounting, use the command AAA accounting. Cisco offers several ways to manage passwords. Type 0 method means a clear text method. It is used, for instance, when you use the command enable password It is not recommended to use this. Historically, Cisco has offered the Type 5 method, which uses MD5, which offers a strong encryption of your password. You can use it when using the command enable secret. Cisco has also available the Type 7, which is used when you use the command service password encryption. It is not recommended because it is breakable. In recent versions of Cisco, Type 8 and 9 are available. You can use this type of passwords when using local authentication and creating your username and password. You can select what type of password you want. Remember that you must use Secure Shell in order to connect to your devices. Version 1 is not recommended. You rather use version 2. Remember that in order to configure version 2, you must configure a host name, a domain name, generate a key with crypto key generate RSA command, and optionally, it is recommended that you enforce using only Secure Shell for your virtual terminals using the command transport input Secure Shell. Cisco offers several levels of privileges within their devices. These are known as role-based access control. It offers levels from 0 to 15. By default, your devices will include levels 0, 1, and 15. You have levels 2 to 14 to customize. In order to configure these privilege levels, use the command privilege exec level, privilege config level, and privilege config commands. You can troubleshoot it with the command show privilege. AAA means authentication, authorization, and accounting. Authentication helps you verify users prior to have access to a network or device. Authorization will access privileges or restrictions to authenticate users, and accounting will track and log user access. If you use the start and stop parameter when configuring accounting, the accounting will start as soon as the session will stop as soon as the session ends. You can use AAA for network device access control. In this case, TACAX+ is preferred. This is used when you want to let users configure devices. And secure network access control, in this case, Radius is preferred. This is used, for instance, when you want to authenticate a device before gaining access to the network, for instance, with other protocols like 802.1x. And there are several differences between Radius and TACAX+. Both are AAA servers, but for instance, Radius will combine authentication and authorization in the same stage, which will make the authentication phase really slow and can fail. And whereas TACAX+ will separate authentication and authorization, Radius cannot authorize individual click commands, where TACAX+ will. Radius will provide no accounting for click commands, where TACAX+ will. And Radius is recommended for secure network access, whereas TACAX+ is recommended for network device access control. Radius will only encrypt the password field, whereas TACAX+ will encrypt the payload. Radius will support extensible authentication protocol, whereas TACAX+ will not. Radius will use several ports depending on the vendor. The standard is 1812 and 1813, but Cisco can use the ports 1645 and 1646, whereas TACAX+ will use the TCP port 49. SYSLOG is a protocol that will let you send information of messages regarding events within devices to a server. And you can configure syslog in your devices, in your Cisco devices, using the command login host and login trap level. Remember that syslog is a protocol that uses UDP port 514. You must make sure to configure network time protocol before doing this, because otherwise the timestamp included in these messages will make no sense. You can also send these messages to the web. You can send it to several destinations. Another way to send these messages is sending them to a buffer within your memory. The downside of this is that these messages will be lost if your device gets reset. You can make this happen using the command login buffer. And in order to troubleshoot syslog, use the command show logging. Remember that you have 8 levels of messages created by Cisco devices from 0 to 7: emergencies, alerts, critical errors, warnings, notifications, information, and debugging. Remember the mnemonics for this. Every awesome Cisco engineer will need ice cream daily, and that probably will help you remember the syslog levels. Now, regarding simple network management protocol, is a protocol that will let centralized device that is known as the network management server have control over remote devices. In order to control a device, this network management server will have to know the MIF for this device, or the management information base. This network management server will communicate with remote devices. These remote devices can be routers, switches, firewalls, whatever, using several SNMP messages. The SNMP messages are get request, get next request, get bulk request. This will try to get information from your device. Your device will respond with a get response packet, and you can also store new values. That means that you can configure your device remotely with SNMP using the packet set request, and your devices can also send you unsolicited messages to the NMS using traps. There are several versions of these protocols. Version 1 and version 2Z are not secure. They will not offer authentication or encryption. So it is recommended that you at least use an access control list when configure them. They are based on community names, and whereas SNMP version 3 will offer you authentication and privacy by using a hash algorithm and an encryption algorithm. In order to configure SNMP version 1 and 2C, use the commands SNMP server community name with the name of the community, SNMP server enable traps, where you have to decide exactly what traps you want your device to send you, and SNMP server host to specify where these traps will be sent to. Remember your troubleshooting commands for Cisco, from the very basic ping to debugs. Remember that for ping, the defaults for Cisco are a count of 5, the default datagram size of 100 bytes, the default timeout, which is 2 seconds, the default toss, which is 0, the default no fragment bit, which is set to no, the data pattern, which is set to ABCD. Ping will send an ICMP echo and will expect when everything happens correctly an ICMP echo reply. The reply is not always the case. You can receive other type of ICMP messages. The traceroute will send an UDP packet destined to the port number 33.4, and it will expect an ICMP time exceeded message coming back. The defaults for traceroute in Cisco are probe timeouts of 3 seconds, a probe count of 3, a minimum TTL of 1, a maximum TTL of 30, and you can also use debugs. They are a troubleshooting tool that can impact the performance. If you're not careful, you can use a debug with specific parameters in order to look for specific events, and with the command debug, and you can disable a debug with the command not debug with the specific command that you use it, or with not debug all. You can use conditional debugs in order to lower the impact of your debug or limit the scope of a debug if you use an access control list, or you can specify one interface with the command debug interface. That's it.